Hello, my name is Julia Moline, and I oversee direct housing logistics nationwide. Today, I'm going to talk about how FEMA provides housing assistance to individuals. FEMA's Individual Assistance Program provides financial and other assistance to individual disaster survivors after disasters. The first step to access any assistance is for a survivor to register with FEMA, which they can do by visiting disasterassistance.gov or by calling 800-621-3362. Survivors can reach out to FEMA on their own, at a disaster recovery center, or with a disaster survivor assistance team. In general, the process by which disaster survivors access assistance is first, registering with FEMA. Second, FEMA will send an inspector out to a survivor's property to assess damages. Third, FEMA will work with the survivor to determine the applicable financial assistance. And finally, FEMA will work with survivors who may be eligible to receive direct housing assistance to determine their eligibility and interest. In general, survivors may be eligible for assistance under our Individual Assistance Program if you are a U.S. citizen, a non-citizen national, or a qualified non-citizen, if FEMA is able to validate your identity, and if your damaged home was your primary residence in a county that has received a presidential disaster declaration. And FEMA may be able to provide assistance for needs that are not covered by an individual's insurance. The most immediate direct assistance FEMA can provide is transitional sheltering assistance. Under transitional sheltering assistance, FEMA makes payments directly to the hotel for survivors to have a clean, safe place to stay. After disaster survivors register with FEMA, you can visit FEMAemergencyhotels.com to locate hotel resources. The first, fastest, and most flexible option for survivors is financial assistance. Financial assistance is the fastest FEMA can move and allows survivors to find solutions that best meet their needs and values. Financial assistance can take a variety of forms. Serious needs assistance is an upfront payment of $750 to address serious needs. Displacement assistance is money that can be used to stay in a hotel or motel, stay with family and friends, or for any other available housing options. The amount of money for displacement assistance is based on 14 days of hotel costs, based on a rate chosen by the state, territory, or tribal nation affected by the disaster. In addition, FEMA may provide assistance for homeowners to make repairs to their homes. Congress sets the maximum amount FEMA can provide for home repair assistance. For Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, the maximum amount is $42,500. FEMA can also provide other needs assistance, which covers things like funeral and medical expenses as a result of the disaster. This assistance is also subject to a separate $42,500 cap. FEMA may also provide displacement assistance, which is initial financial assistance to cover the cost of up to 2 months' worth of rent. In addition, FEMA can provide continuing rental assistance to cover the ongoing cost of rental properties. Survivors do not need to wait for FEMA assistance to secure a lease agreement, but survivors must register with FEMA to be eligible for rental assistance and will be required to recertify their need for rental assistance on a monthly basis. Survivors may be eligible for rental assistance if they are a homeowner whose home was damaged and they need a place to live while their home is being repaired, or if they are a renter whose home is no longer livable. Rental assistance is not subject to a statutory cap. As we will discuss, direct housing is a powerful solution but will not serve everyone and is not an overnight solution. If you are concerned about individuals or communities living in substandard living conditions, please contact your state point of contact or a FEMA division supervisor. In some instances where financial assistance is not an effective solution and where survivors meet certain eligibility criteria, FEMA can provide a physical unit to a disaster survivor. To be eligible for direct housing, the survivor's primary residence must have been damaged by the disaster, and if the survivor owns their primary residence, disaster damage to the property must be at least $12 per square foot. In other words, if your home is 1,000 square feet, your real property damage must be at least $12,000. Or, if the survivor rents their primary residence, the home must have been destroyed or received major damage as a result of the disaster. Direct housing solutions are tailored to meet the specific needs of individual disaster survivors, so direct housing is not an overnight solution. There are three primary mechanisms by which FEMA delivers direct housing: direct lease, multifamily lease and repair, and temporary transportable housing units, including travel trailers and manufactured housing units. Direct lease is a program by which FEMA leases existing housing units that are ready for occupancy on behalf of applicants. Direct lease allows FEMA to take advantage of existing housing stock and can be much faster than other options. FEMA tries to avoid competing with disaster survivors for the same types of units, so we target units that are not typically available to the public. These may include vacation rentals, corporate apartments, second homes, and condominiums. For all direct housing options, units must have a bathroom, a kitchen, and a common space. Property owners who are interested in doing business with FEMA should register at the System for Award Management, SAM.gov. You can find specific information requirements for interested property owners at SAM.gov, and counties can share this information with interested property owners, property management companies, and the general public. Multifamily lease and repair is a program by which FEMA repairs existing multifamily buildings, by which I mean 3 or more units, in exchange for being able to use the units to house disaster survivors. Multifamily lease and repair is not typically a primary direct housing solution, but a few large multifamily buildings can go a long way towards housing disaster survivors. As with direct lease, property owners interested in doing business with FEMA should register at sam.gov and monitor for requests for information and solicitations. Counties can share this information with interested property owners, property management companies, and the general public. FEMA can provide transportable temporary housing units, which are typically travel trailers or manufactured housing units. Travel trailers are small, flexible, and easy to move, and are our fastest temporary transportable housing option. Travel trailers can be a great solution for a private property owner with a smaller lot. However, they're not always ideal for longer-term living. All of FEMA's travel trailers are pull-away, none are motorized. Manufactured housing units are regulated by the HUD code and are more suitable for longer-term living. Manufactured housing units are larger than travel trailers and require more space and infrastructure. They come in 1, 2, and 3-bedroom configurations, and they are all single-wide. Lengths vary based on the number of bedrooms. FEMA can place temporary transportable housing units on private property, on commercial sites, or on vacant land. The best and fastest option is to place a housing unit on a survivor's private property. This option keeps survivors close to home to oversee their recovery and involves the least amount of planning and coordination. In order to place a unit on a private site, FEMA must be able to access the site with a heavy unit. The site must have enough space for the unit. The site must be safe in terms of flood, landslide, and other risks. And the site must have functional water, sewer, and electric. One action local officials can take now is to evaluate zoning restrictions, such as setback requirements, that could affect individuals' ability to place units on their property. With quick permitting and coordination with local officials and utilities, FEMA can install a temporary housing unit on a private site within a few weeks after determining a survivor's eligibility. The next best option for the placement of a unit is in an existing commercial park, such as a mobile home park or a campground. Existing parks are great because we can take advantage of existing infrastructure. If needed, FEMA can assist with debris clearance and utility repairs to make use of the park. Another action local officials can take is to identify possible commercial parks and send local information to ncsites@dewberry.com. That is NCSITES@DEWBERRY.com. Commercial parks can take a little longer than private site placement because it requires securing land leases and may require some utility or site work to implement. The last and slowest option for unit placement is to convert vacant land into what FEMA calls a group site. In these instances, FEMA will prepare the site and install all utilities to ensure the site is operational. The infrastructure work adds significant time. The biggest driver of timelines for group sites is identifying and securing land, including navigating ownership, permits, environmental and floodplain reviews, and local cultural considerations. Group sites can add a minimum of 3 to 4 months to the implementation timeline. Although FEMA tries to avoid group sites, it is important to begin the identification and evaluation process early in the disaster to ensure that this option is available if it's needed. County officials should start identifying possible group sites and sending location information to ncsites@dewberry.com. FEMA does have the option to sell units to occupants. I also want to talk a little bit about floodplain management considerations. FEMA aims to reduce risks to survivors and never wants to create new risks. To the extent possible, FEMA avoids placing units in the special flood hazard area. However, there are instances where there is no practicable alternative. FEMA works with local government to evaluate options on a case-by-case basis to determine the best course of action. The Stafford Act prohibits FEMA from selling units placed in a special flood hazard area to an occupant. Counties can begin thinking about long-term housing recovery now. Actions may include identifying opportunities to develop new, affordable housing. FEMA works with individual disaster survivors to determine the course of action that best suits their needs. FEMA will provide as many units as individual survivors need. FEMA works with each individual disaster survivor to determine the best course of action. FEMA has units on the ground in North Carolina and is working with individual eligible disaster survivors now to determine specific needs and timelines. No, FEMA will only put a unit on your property with your permission.